Welcome to the Role of Memory Flipped Classroom activity. Before we get started, let's recap why we're doing this unit and what we hope to accomplish. Our purpose is to explore the ways in which memory affects our lives, and we have two target goals. The first one is to convey an opinion using reflective writing. Basically, that just means you're going to be writing an argument, but instead of using evidence from, say, research or data, or even a quote from another author, you're actually going to be using your memories, whether they're real or not, to support your beliefs. And our second target goal is to construct convincing memories using literary devices and figurative language. But it can be difficult to convey a realistic memory, especially if it was a long time ago or we don't have any at all and we're having to make it up. So today we're going to be focusing on how to construct those convincing memories by grounding our story in time and a certain place. So how do we construct convincing memories by linking them to time and place? So let's start from the beginning. When we're trying to think of memories, where do we start? How do we get the memories to flow back to our head? How do we get them readily accessible so we can write them down and use them? Well, first let's start with the basics about what triggers a memory, what brings it back into our mind, what makes it stand out. Well, maybe it's a memorable experience. Maybe you're going overseas and that triggers a memory of the first time you went overseas. Or maybe it's a unique appearance of something. Maybe the first time you saw something, the first time you ate something, maybe something like broccoli. You remember the first time you tried broccoli, okay? Or a big one for us is sights and sounds. So if we hear a sound, for example, maybe we hear a song, it can trigger us to think about a memory where, say, your grandmother sang that song to you, or during a holiday season you heard this song a lot. Another one is routines, okay? Our routines can trigger memories because we've been doing them over and over again throughout our life, and maybe it can remind you of a time you did this when you were younger, or even a time you did this with someone who's maybe not around anymore. The last one is our mood, our feelings, okay? Maybe we're feeling very sad, and this reminds us of a time we were feeling sad in the past. So keep this information in mind as we continue on through this unit, because you'll need to know how memory works in order to use it in your writing. Think about how we attach ideas and thoughts to objects, places, and different time periods, okay? You're going to want to use those triggers, whether it's physical or emotional, in order to bring back the memories so that you can use them, but also in order to construct that convincing memory. The more details we can include about the object, the place, or the time, the more realistic it will seem. So when I talk about details in our memories, we need to be careful because I'm not talking about creating a laundry list where you describe everything that's sitting around you during the time of your writing. It really needs to be meaningful things, okay? So how do we do that? Well, let's look at some geographical triggers and ways we can include descriptions of the place in order to make it seem convincing. Maybe you want to describe the actual geography. Literally, are there hills, are there mountains, are there trees, things like that. You can also focus on what makes this place unique, okay? What does it look like that you wouldn't see anywhere else? What are some of the signposts that help the reader identify where this is? And of course, you do want to include objects in the place, okay? But they should be things that carry some kind of symbolism or meaning. Now, what I mean by meaning is maybe it has a role in the story's plot. So, for example, they need to go grab this thing and move into another room. It needs to be part of the story rather than just decorations on the wall. And we also want to use emotional triggers in our story, okay? This is where we make our character feel like they're alive, they're real because they have these feelings, these emotions. Basically, they're not a robot. Focus on creating nostalgia. When we create nostalgia, we're talking about a longing for the past. So, rather than having your character longing for the past, which of course you could do, maybe you want to include objects and things in your story that we can't get now. Maybe you want to evoke the same sense of nostalgia for your reader so that they feel as well that they want to be back in this time period. Maybe it was a happier time period than it is now. focus on creating a mood in your story, right? I want to be able to feel, is it a sad and gloomy day outside? Does my character also feel sad and gloomy? Well, how can I get that from the way you describe not only the weather, but the character's emotions? Also think about your character's mood. For example, if you're describing the weather outside, maybe it could match your character's mood. For example, you see them very sad and gloomy, and outside it's raining and it's a dark day, okay? So how does this apply to reflective writing, and how can we improve our reflective writing more specifically? Take a minute to look through these tips on how to write reflectively. I'm going to focus on the third and fourth point. The third point says, have your mood match the theme of the writing. So, your character shouldn't be feeling happy and gleeful when your theme is about, say, losing a family member. Also, try to avoid memories from the childhood amnesia period. That means basically 4 or younger. Baby memories, not going to be so useful because there's not going to be much detail and it's going to be hard for me to relate as your reader. Also, you've probably heard that the more truthful you can be, the better the writing will be. That's not necessarily true, but it's definitely there for a reason. If you feel like creativity is not your strong point here, write from the truth. Write from what really happened to you. So let's apply what we've learned. I want you to take 5 minutes to do a free write. During this free write, your prompt is to choose one memory from your childhood. During the 5 minutes, write down as many details as you can remember from that memory. When was it? Where was it? Who were you with? And what happened? But again, focus on the details. So now I want you to press pause, take 5 minutes to do this, and then come back when you're done. Done already? Okay, let's continue. Now that you have your memory, I want you to do a post-writing reflection, okay? So think about why you chose this memory. Was it because it was the only thing you could remember and you couldn't think of anything else? Well, consider why it stood out in your mind, even if that was true. What emotions and feelings are connected to this memory? And did you relive this memory recently, or maybe every year? Or is it something you only did once? Done reflecting? Okay, let's move on to our main activity now, our memory map. Together, our class will create a memory map. We're going to be archiving and sharing our memories, both the good and the bad, by the way, from our childhood. Okay, let's get started with our activity. The first thing you need to do is open Gmail. You should see an email from me sharing with you my map. It's titled Our Memory Map. Click this in order to see this. Once you get here, the first thing you'll need to do is click your class. Choose your class's layer and be sure not to type or add anything else. You don't need to add a layer, okay? So click through the classes to find yours. Once you've found it, get started. For the demonstration, I'll pretend I'm in S201. What we're going to do is we're going to choose that location or that place from your memory you did during your free write in order to map it on our memory map. Remember, it's okay if it is a local memory or if it was something that happened overseas. Either way, you're going to be typing in the address into the search bar at the top. If you're not comfortable posting the address, maybe it's your actual home address, don't feel like you have to. Instead, why don't you choose one of the locations like you see on the map itself. For example, maybe you want to click Novena. Once you've decided on your location and you've narrowed it as close as you're comfortable with, type it into the search box. For my memory, I've chosen the Singapore Zoo. So now I'm going to type it into the search box and add it to my map. Double check that it appeared under your class layer and not one of the other classes. You can check it right here. Now that I've added it to my map, I need to title it so that people can tell this is my memory. In order to do this, go to the toolbar at the bottom. Click the Edit button and change the title to include your name and a title of the place. If it's something like your home, you may want to get rid of all the block number and the zip code and add a title, maybe something that describes the place. Now I'm going to post my free write into the info box below. Once you've done this, press Save. Now, to add the finishing touch, I'm going to add a picture. It's important to add pictures to help us visualize this place and why it was important to you. You can either choose one from Google Images or you can choose one from your actual photo album. It's up to you. It can be one from your childhood or it could be one you took just yesterday. To add the image, go back to that toolbar and click the camera. To paste from your own childhood pictures or a photo album that you have, you'll need to paste an image URL. In order to do this, save your image on Google Drive, right-click the image to get the drop-down box, go to Get Shareable Link, check that it's anyone with the link can view, copy the link, and paste it into the box. There's my picture, okay? Then select, and it's there. So last thing, you'll need to save. If you're interested, play around with the other features. You can even style this to make it a bit unique. For example, you can change the color, you can even change the shapes, and they have some kind of silly shapes in here that you can play around with. I'll choose what looks like an animal. I don't know, maybe this thing. Okay? Okay, now my post is done. So I've made it to where you can actually click through this, look at my memory, read it, see a picture, and find it on the map. After we've all done this, we can see one giant collective memory. Okay, I hope that was clear. Now let's go back to our presentation. We have one last thing to talk about. So now that you've uploaded your image and your memory, we want to start thinking about how we're going to apply this in class. So before our next class, I want you to read O. Tiam Chin's Grasshoppers. The link is in Google Classroom, and be prepared to discuss its theme in class. Consider how Chin describes his childhood memory and identify connections with what you have learned today. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.